All right, guys, let's talk about psilocybin, because I feel like this is one of the most misunderstood substances in modern medicine. Most people hear magic mushrooms and immediately associate it with partying, losing control, or escaping reality. But what's actually happening neurologically is the complete opposite. Psilocybin temporarily quiets down the default mode network, which is the part of your brain that's responsible for your sense of self, ego, and your repetitive thought patterns.
When neuroscientists finally put volunteers in MRI machines and gave them psilocybin, they thought brain activity would explode, more neural firing, more energy, more chaos. Instead, they saw the opposite. The brain got quieter. Specifically, one part went almost silent, the default mode network. The default mode network is your brain's control center. It's the voice in your head, the thing that says I when you think about yourself. It creates your ego, the boundary between you and everything else, your sense of self. On psilocybin, that shuts down. Not partially, not temporarily. The entire network goes offline. And when it does, something extraordinary happens. Brain regions that never talk to each other suddenly connect. The visual cortex starts communicating with areas that process emotion. Memory centers link up with parts that control body awareness. It's like every neighborhood in a city suddenly building roads to every other neighborhood.
And when that quiets down, people aren't escaping themselves. They're actually able to see themselves more clearly, kind of from the outside looking in, with less fear, less defensiveness, less emotional distortion.
The connections formed during these psychedelic experiences don't just disappear when the drug wears off. Brain scans show new neural pathways remaining active for weeks, sometimes months. In some cases, the changes appear permanent.
And now modern research is catching up. Kelly, you weren't so crazy after all. Johns Hopkins, NYU, and other institutions are studying it for treatment-resistant depression.
Johns Hopkins researchers found something even stranger. People who took psilocybin in controlled settings showed lasting personality changes. Not mood changes, personality changes. They became more open, more creative, more connected to others.
But if you give people psilocybin and they have a mystical experience, which is very common among people who take these sorts of chemicals, then their personality transforms permanently, such that 1 year later they're one standard deviation higher in openness. And openness is the creativity dimension. And that seems to be a permanent transformation. So that's really remarkable. And about 80% of the people who undergo the Johns Hopkins experiments report that the experience is like one of the three most important things that's ever happened to them.
This shouldn't be possible. Personality is supposed to be fixed by age 30, but psilocybin rewrote that rule. And here's what really puzzled scientists. Psilocin, what psilocybin becomes in your body, fits into human serotonin receptors perfectly. Not approximately, perfectly. Like a key designed for a specific lock.
Not daily medication, not lifelong dependence, not a Band-Aid, just interruption of rigid neural loops that were keeping them stuck.
Brain scans prove psilocybin creates new neural connections. They prove it dissolves old patterns. They prove it fundamentally changes how we think. But ancient civilizations didn't need MRI machines to know this. They'd been using mushrooms for thousands of years. They saw them as technology, sacred technology, a way to communicate with other realms, a way to speak with our ancestors. They saw mushrooms as a way to speak to God.
This is why research is showing profound benefits from people suffering with PTSD, anxiety, depression, and addiction. And not because it numbs them, but because it allows them to access and process things that neurologically they've been avoiding. And here's the part that people get wrong. Psilocybin is not about escaping. It's all about intention. Because this isn't a substance that overrides your brain. It kind of amplifies what's already there. This is why using it recreationally in chaotic environments, mixing it with alcohol or other substances, it can often lead to negative experiences. I've had a bad trip. I personally don't believe in bad trips, by the way. I kind of believe that every experience teaches you something about yourself. But this is also why it's so crucial to have a guide or a therapist. This definitely isn't about promoting blind use. This is about understanding that not everything labeled dangerous is destructive, and not everything labeled as medicine actually heals. Because true healing isn't about suppressing symptoms. I think it's about finally seeing yourself clearly enough to change, and psilocybin can do that.